You know the dream, right? That picture-perfect idea of packing everything up, moving closer to the grandkids, and just being there for all the little moments. It's such a powerful vision, and it drives one of the biggest decisions you can make in retirement. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the complex reality behind that beautiful dream.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Should you actually do it? Is it the right choice for you? Is it really worth all the upheaval, the cost, the risk? I mean, so many people are wrestling with this, just trying to figure out the best path forward for their family, and just as importantly, for themselves.
Well, what's so fascinating is that the answer, it doesn't really come from a real estate agent or even your financial planner. Well, not at first anyway. It turns out the whole thing really hinges on one crucial element that honestly, most people completely overlook. And this is it. This is the absolute key. You have to completely reframe the problem in your mind. This is not about finding the perfect house in the perfect zip code. At its core, this is a decision about the dynamics of your most important relationships. The house, the location, that's just a consequence. If you get this part right, everything else has a way of falling into place. Okay, so let's say you've decided, yep, we're doing it. We want to be closer. But how close is too close? This brings us to our first big reality check, something we're calling the proximity paradox. It's this weirdly counterintuitive thing where what you think makes sense about distance, well, it can actually backfire. And the difference here is, honestly, it's massive. Think about it. When you live 5 minutes away, you become the default, the first call for everything. Can you pick up Timmy? Can you watch Sarah for an hour? Those spontaneous requests can turn into routine expectations, like overnight. But what if you're 25 minutes away? Suddenly, visits have to be planned. That little bit of distance creates a natural buffer, and it's what helps build healthier boundaries. It can literally save you from that dreaded default babysitter burnout. And you can see how this plays out in the numbers. Distance basically sets the rhythm of how often you'll see each other. If you're less than 10 minutes away, you're probably looking at 2, maybe 3 times a week. Push that to 30 minutes, and it naturally settles into a nice weekly visit. But more than 4 hours away, that becomes more of a big quarterly event. And look, the question isn't which one of these is better. The real question is, which one of these rhythms actually fits the retirement you've been dreaming of? All right, now we're getting to what the research shows is, without a doubt, the most critical factor of all. I mean, if you get this part wrong, the whole move, it could just be a recipe for regret, and it won't matter one bit how perfect the house is. You really have to let this one sink in. Moving closer doesn't fix a relationship that's already a little strained. It's more like it puts it under a microscope. Proximity is an amplifier. It takes whatever you have and makes it more. So if your relationship is already strong and wonderful, guess what? It's going to get even better. But if it's a bit rocky, moving closer can make things so much worse than they would be if you just stayed put. So how do you know? How do you know if your relationship is ready for that amplifier to be turned up? You have to be really honest with yourself. Let's do a quick gut check. Right now, do your kids call you, or are you always the one initiating? Have you actually had open, explicit conversations about expectations? And this is a big one. After you visit, how do you feel? Are you energized and happy, or are you just drained? Because your reality right now, that's the best predictor of what your reality will be when you live 5 minutes away. Okay, next up, we need to tackle a huge myth. There's this common assumption that if you just move close to family, poof, loneliness in retirement is solved. It seems to make sense, right? But the actual data, it tells a very different story. Just take a look at who retirees actually see every week. The numbers might surprise you. Almost 2/3 see their neighbors weekly, but their own adult children, only about 40%. And that's even when they live close by. And it makes sense. You know, your kids have jobs, their kids' soccer practice, their own lives are incredibly busy. So what this tells us is that your best defense against feeling isolated isn't just your family. It's the network of friends and peers that you build for yourself, right there in your new community. If you don't have that, your entire social life can end up depending on your kid's schedule. And trust me, that's a whole different kind of lonely. All right, let's shift gears and talk about the practical stuff. Let's talk money. Because it's so easy to get swept up in the emotion of it all, but we absolutely have to look at the hard numbers and the real financial risks here. So take a look at this range, $15,000 to $40,000. And let's be super clear about what this is.
This is not the down payment on your new house. This is just for the process of moving. We're talking professional movers, travel costs, maybe some temporary housing, getting your old house fixed up to sell, all of that. It's a huge chunk of change that you have to plan for, and it's all before you've even thought about buying the new place. Now, it's not all scary numbers. There can be some real financial upsides depending on where you move. The source material gives a great example from Georgia. If you're over 65 and qualify, a special exemption can basically wipe out the school tax portion of your property tax bill. And since school taxes are often the biggest piece of that pie, that is a huge savings. It can make a place way more affordable in the long run. So the lesson here is, you've got to do your homework on state-specific tax breaks. But here's the real financial stress test. You have to ask yourself this tough question. Your kids, they're in their prime career building years, right? So what if they get a fantastic job offer in another state 2 years after you move? If you've poured all your savings into this one move to follow them and then they pack up and leave, what's your plan? Can you actually afford to do it all over again? Or do you risk being left behind, stranded in a town where you only know one family that isn't there anymore? Which brings us to what is, I'm just going to say it, probably the most uncomfortable part of this entire process. But it's also the most important. This is the single best thing you can do to protect your relationships and prevent a whole lot of future resentment and disappointment. And this right here, this says it all. The single biggest reason these moves go sour, assumed expectations. We avoid having the direct kind of awkward conversations because we just assume. We assume everyone's on the same page. But all those unspoken thoughts, oh, I thought you'd be able to babysit on Fridays, or I assumed we travel in the winter. Those are the little things that build up and become a recipe for absolute disaster. So what's the solution? It's something you can think of as a pre-move agreement. Now, I know that sounds super formal, like a legal contract, but that's not what it is. Think of it as a relationship protection plan. It's about sitting down and getting super specific. What days and hours are you genuinely happy to help with childcare? Be really clear about your own travel plans. What's the backup babysitter plan for when you're not available? The point of this isn't a lack of trust. It's the exact opposite. It's about creating total clarity and respect for everyone's time, energy, and independence. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Let's pull this all together into a simple framework for you. To really feel confident that you're making the right choice for the right reasons, you need to be able to answer these next 4 questions. Honestly. Question 1. Is the relationship genuinely strong? And I mean beyond just loving each other. Is there real mutual respect? Does the contact go both ways? Number 2. Are your expectations explicit? Have you had that hard conversation and actually agreed on things, or are you just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping for the best? Third, do you have a real plan to build a social life for yourself, one that exists outside of your family? How are you going to find your people, your community, so you're not just waiting on your kids to be free? And finally, number 4, the financial reality check. Can your finances handle this move right now and potentially another one if life throws you a curveball? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is really all about, isn't it? The goal isn't just about being close on a map. The real goal, the true goal, is to create a retirement that truly supports and sustains your happiness, your freedom, and your well-being.